make it clear.
Okay, it's now both an honour and a privilege to introduce our first keynote speaker this morning, Adelaide's own Dr. Darryl Sellwood, or as I know him, DrDazz, one of the wittiest people that I know. Back in the day at Regency Park Centre, Darryl and I shared an office and a desktop PC, and he was a terrific office mate and colleague, which was awesome. I was always intrigued by how Darryl used his AT. So from seeing him whiz around the corridors of Regency Park in a very respectful, safe manner, I will add, in his power chair, to mastering his voice-out communication aids. He's a regular invited speaker for my rehabilitation and assistive technology topic at Flinders University, and the feedback from engineering and physio students is always the same every year. Darryl is just sensational, and his knowledge and his experiences are just worth hearing every day. So Dr. Darryl Sellwood completed his PhD in 2019 at Flinders University and was awarded the very prestigious Vice-Chancellor's Award for Doctoral Excellence. His PhD project experienced the lived experiences of people with complex communication needs in developing romantic and sexual relationships. In 2022, his paper based on the research was published in the Augmentative and Alternative Communication Journal, AAC. Dr. Sellwood, DrDazz, I can't call him Dr. Sellwood, DrDazz has complex communication needs and uses a variety of AAC strategies. He's a computer science graduate by background and experience in the telecommunication fields as well. And he has a broad perspective on both the user experience and technical issues. He graduated with first-class honours in a Bachelor of Arts degree, researching telecommunications access for people who rely on those devices. He is currently working part-time as a research fellow at Flinders University as part of the panel that's reviewing the curriculum in the disability studies discipline. He also runs DrDazz Coffee, if you are following some of the social media posts leading up to the conference, which is a boutique premium conference business providing ethically sourced coffee products throughout Australia. And I'm going to have to get onto that, Darryl, for sure. An incisive and provocative thinker and an engaging speaker, DrDazz has presented at numerous conferences and keynote addresses both Australia and internationally. Please join me in welcoming DrDazz this morning.
Before I start, I would like to welcome you to the conference and the beautiful city of Adelaide, which I call home. And I want to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on has been home to the Kaurna people for thousands of years before we got here, and express gratitude for their custodianship of the land. I was delighted to be invited to bring you this keynote presentation today. The organizing committee might regret that decision by the time I'm finished. They say you should not talk about money, sex, or religion in polite company. But there is another subject on this taboo list: disability. Well, today I am going to touch on all four. The theme of the conference this year is Activate Life. My goal today is to activate your creativity. Activate your imagination. Activate your sense of possibility, so that you can go out from this conference to explore and develop creative solutions. And, by doing so, enable you to activate the potential in the people around you. And to activate profits, of course. The word activate connotes a short action taken which sets something else in motion. For a journey to begin, something needs to be activated. It could be a dream, or an idea, or just a vague sense that we need to be somewhere different. This morning, let's start our journey together. Our focus for the next 2 days is on assistive technology and how we can activate assistive technology to support people with disabilities in their lives. From mundane daily tasks such as brushing their teeth independently, to wild adventures like piloting spacecraft with eye gaze, and everything in between. Like delivering keynote addresses to a room full of assistive technology geeks. And while I'll be discussing a whole range of things today, I have this question nagging at me. Is there a missing link in the design and development of assistive technology? It's easy to forget how important assistive technology is. Many AT technologies designed to support people with disabilities have broader application. Just think about your phone. Predictive text. Speech recognition. They were originally designed as AT. What about glasses? How many of us are wearing these things on our faces, and forget they are even there? I literally would not be here speaking to you without multiple AT solutions. From the rail that enabled me to get into my wheelchair this morning, to the bidet that I designed to clean my bum, to the eye gaze technology to type this script, to the text-to-speech engine that created the sound files you're listening to. It is easy to see AT as just solutions to support people with disability in their daily lives, but today I would like to start by exploring the idea that for some people with disability, AT also becomes part of their identity. When I was preparing this presentation, someone told me about a post on Facebook which was getting some attention. He told me there was a photo of a statue of a child being lifted out of a wheelchair into heaven. And people were commenting, saying, "How sweet, what a tearjerker, how inspirational," and all that crap. Then he told me that one woman commented that she found the idea insulting. She was a wheelchair user herself. Her argument, which I have heard before, was that her wheelchair, a piece of her assistive technology, was a part of her identity. It is a part of who she is. When I researched the statue, I learned that the memorial was created by the father of Matthew Stanford Robinson, who was born in 1988 and died in 1999. You can often find articles about it online with headings such as, "Grieving Father Creates Touching Memorial for His Disabled Son." I can understand the point that the woman was making. Although you hear many say, "Don't see my disability or my wheelchair, see me as a person," I would argue that the AT I use, such as this wheelchair and this lovely baby, my AAC device, has become part of my identity. Like the way a person who plays saxophone becomes a sax player. But like the sax player, my AT does not define the whole of my identity. The sax player might also be a wife, and a mother, and a brain surgeon. But the woman's comment that the statue was insulting got me thinking about disability and identity. If disability and assistive technology forms a part of our identity, what happens if you believe that you go to heaven when you die? Do you still have your identity including your disability? Nancy Elias Land, in her book The Disabled God, suggests that you might. She points out that in the Bible, when it talks about Christ having risen from the dead, he still had wounds in his side and hands, and she argues that he was thus a disabled God. While I don't want to get into a theological debate here around whether there might be need for assistive technology in heaven, issues around AT and identity are really important here on earth. I often raise this issue about AT and identity in the lectures I give to occupational therapy and speech pathology students called An Introduction to Alternative and Augmentative Communication, AAC. I start by introducing them to the work of Janice Light, who argues that there are 4 major reasons that people communicate: to fulfill needs and wants, to exchange information and ideas, for obtaining social closeness, and practicing social etiquette. I suggest that there is a 5th reason, and that is to be able to express your identity. Then I show them a video of a young guy in the UK who uses his eye gaze AAC device to say that he wants his device to have a Newcastle accent. His mate asks what kind of voice he currently has, and he answers by having his device say,
"It's a shit one. US. It doesn't pull all the girls."
His basic argument was that, because his device had an American accent, young women didn't know where he was from, and apparently, guys from Newcastle in the UK are, well,
known to be more bad in bed.
So, it is important to be able to express identity through the use of AT. Hence, this raises the question: can someone use their AT to assist them to portray their identity? If AT does play a role in this, how much control does the end user have in this? I think these are important questions for designers and suppliers of assistive technology to explore. Yes, I had a choice of colors for my wheelchair and I usually go with all black, thinking while I know it is going to stand out like a shag on a rock, hopefully it will be slightly less so in black. Yet, there are no options available that allow me to either jazz it up or mellow it down depending on the day. And, even if there was, the bloody NDIS would say it wasn't reasonable or necessary. But think about it. Despite some fortunate ones, like those with highly adaptable sports wheelchairs, every year hundreds of wheelchair users are asked to choose the appearance of their wheelchair for the next 5 years or more. Imagine asking a fashionista to choose one pair of shoes that they will have to wear every day and everywhere for the next 2 days in a row, yet alone, for the next 5 years. There would be outrage and riots in the streets. Yet for many users of AT equipment, they do not have this kind of freedom to choose. Most people do not have the ability to easily personalize their assistive technology on a daily basis. I suggest we are missing opportunities to assist people to express their creativity. As I said earlier, in some ways my assistive technology has become part of my identity. People often make the mistake of thinking of assistive technology as being only electronic devices, but, as many of you here today would know, AT is so much broader than this. I think it is part of human nature to look for things that could make our lives and those of others easier. For a caveman, using a large stone could have been seen as a way of breaking into a nut to eat the contents. For a 21st century man, a text message using his smartphone could have been seen as an easy way of breaking up with his girlfriend. If he had any sort of intelligence, he would quickly realize that it is not a smart method. He would have to think of an alternative or augmentative communication method. For me as a young boy crawling around on the floor wearing the knees out of my corduroy pants, people around me realized that sewing thick leather patches onto the knees of my pants was a good way of preventing me from needing a new pair every week. Thank God there was the Rehabilitation Engineering Department on site at Regency Park Centre, where I grew up, which had a boot-making shop which could sew the patches on. While we are here, hello to Barry Seeger. We share many good memories of the Rehab Engineering Department at Regency, the first such department in Australia. I'm looking forward to attending the oration dinner tonight. I grew up at Regency Park Centre, living in the villas on site. I am not exactly sure how old I was, possibly 10 or 11 years old, but the earliest opportunity I had to participate in an assistive technology development research project was trialing a robotic arm. It could, or was meant to be able to, draw pictures, turn pages of a book, and feed me. I was chosen to be part of the research project which, from memory, originated from the Adelaide University Engineering Department. So, one day I rode home from school on my three-wheeler bike, and found a massive object in the living area. It looked like a large office desk with computer stuff under the desk where the drawers would usually be. Keep in mind this was possibly the first computer I had seen. The desktop had a panel of large easy-access buttons and a large robotic swing arm. Depending on which of the end attachments was connected, and the mode it was in, the buttons allowed me to have the arm draw very basic pictures, or enabled me to read a book. And turn the pages almost as quickly and elegantly as I was able to do so myself. And to feed myself my breakfast of warm wheat Bix, with a ratio of 2:8. 2 spoonfuls in my mouth to the 8 which ended up in my lap. Hey Barry, did you have a PhD student design that thing? I don't think I had much say in the research, and I must admit it was a prototype at the time, which required a lot more R&D. As a side note, I would be interested to hear from anyone who was involved with this forward-thinking AT project. I would love to learn of the true outcomes from the research. My next encounter with a computer was when I was 12. I was still attending Regency Park Centre School. Interestingly enough, the weekly art lessons I was doing with Mr. Andrews soon turned into computer lessons. The school's first computers, 2 Apple IIe computers, were in the art room, or in a room off the art room. Looking back, I guess you could say those computers opened the doors to many forms of the arts for me. Some might argue computer programming is not one of these forms, yet I would beg to differ. I still remember the first lesson. There were only 2 of us in the class, and it was straight into programming. But, first, as a part of the lesson, Mr. Andrews gave us the obligatory garbage in, garbage out lecture, and then it was on to the basics of programming in BASIC. The first program we learnt to print on the screen was Hello World. It was definitely a hello to the world of computers and assistive technology for me. I was hooked. A couple of years earlier, I had met Dr. John Hickman at the launch of his autobiography called One Step at a Time. The book was launched by Malcolm Fraser, the then Prime Minister of Australia. I had a new hobby at the time of collecting autographs, so I made sure I was in the right position to get Malcolm Fraser's autograph and to say hello to Dr. Hickman. He was a mathematician who had cerebral palsy similar to mine. I decided I wanted to become a doctor too. A PhD doctor, whatever that meant. Fast forward 20 years, in which I used numerous different types of assistive technology, far too many to talk about here. I did stray from my goal of doing a PhD, partly because I learned how much work it was going to be. Yet, after encountering many hurdles finding meaningful employment, a good friend suggested I should go to university. Her thinking was that, if I obtained a PhD, my employment opportunities would explode. I thought it was a bit of a long shot, but was prepared to give it a go. I enrolled in something I knew I would be good at. My fascination with computers and programming had led me into self-employment, building databases for various community organizations. But I was terrible at charging people for my work and the business wasn't sustaining me, so I started a computer science degree. Toward the end of the degree I met with my lecturers to discuss my future. During the conversation, various different opportunities were raised and discussed. Somehow, the 10-year-old autograph collecting boy inside me popped his head out and suggested I could do a PhD. Shock. Horror. One of the lecturers exclaimed that doing a PhD would be out of the question. They said, "Darryl, you wouldn't be able to do that, a PhD. You have to give lectures and tutorials to do a PhD. You wouldn't be able to do that." What? I can't do public speaking? Oh, terribly sorry. I could have listened to that advice and focused on the things I can't do. Fortunately, I knew he was wrong. I had already been doing public speaking for years by that time. Rather than getting angry at my lecturer, I let it go and focused on what I could do. I went on to find some academics who could see the skills I had and my potential to be a researcher and educator. The next step was getting first-class honors in a Bachelor of Arts degree researching telecommunications access for people who rely on AAC. Then it was time to start my PhD, which investigated the experiences of people with complex communication needs in developing romantic or sexual relationships. I graduated in 2019 from Flinders University and was awarded the Vice Chancellor's Award for Doctoral Thesis Excellence. The disability and sexuality field has enjoyed tremendous growth within the last few decades. However, the voices of people with both communication and physical disabilities are rarely included in this conversation. Even in the broader disability field, the voices of people with complex communication needs are often lost as other perspectives are more easily heard. The research findings have been published in an open access article in the AAC journal. 9 participants who had complex communication needs and use AAC devices were interviewed. All were at least 21 years old and had physical and communication disabilities since childhood. In examining the interviews, ableist attitudes from others were seen to be rife throughout many of the experiences shared, including from strangers, support workers, friends, and family members. Ableism is something we, with disabilities, encounter on a daily basis, and was clearly evident in the stories the participants shared with me. Ableism is a form of discrimination against people with disabilities. It comes in many forms, and can manifest in attitudes and actions. For example, a shop owner not installing a ramp, because they believe that they won't have customers using wheelchairs. Or one of my neighbors telling me that I, as a disabled person, am leeching off government systems, and should get a job. It is easy to assume that ableism is something that happens out there, amongst the general public. However, as mentioned earlier, my research identified that it was also experienced from people who we would expect to know better. Parents, friends, support workers and managers of supported accommodation. Ableism can also be found within the broader disability sector. This includes the AT field. I would like to encourage you all to really understand what it is, and learn to identify ableism within your organization or company. It may not always seem obvious. A company in the disability sector can seem to have a good ethos regarding the services they provide to their customers, ticking off all the necessary NDIS boxes, yet still have ableism rife in their systems. I have seen it in new startups excited to do the right thing, and with the goal of bringing revolutionary changes to the disability sector, and I have seen ableism rife in well-established organizations also. Ableism tends to be lurking in the background, and can be difficult to detect, if it doesn't affect you. For example, entering a disability service provider's office to find that the reception desk is designed for standing people. This really tells me what the values of the organization are. I recently went to an appointment at one of the largest disability services in Australia. Yes, the reception desk catered for both standing people and people in wheelchairs, but the gentleman behind the desk totally ignored me. Even when he was told to talk to me, he kept talking to my support worker instead. It doesn't just make people with disabilities uncomfortable and workplaces toxic, it can affect your organization's success and company revenue. But I want to move on now, and get to the findings from my PhD research, which are specifically related to assistive technologies, and the opportunities that exist for developing new types of solutions. Participants indicated their AAC devices did not adequately support their communication while socializing, let alone when in bed with a lover. One participant with good upper body control and hand dexterity reported that using her AAC device in bed to communicate with her partner was extremely difficult. Another participant had a partner who also had complex communication needs with a significant physical disability. His partner could use facial expressions to convey his needs and desires. The couple devised an innovative low-tech solution, an alphabet-based strategy which involved his partner biting or sucking his finger to spell out words. One of the alarming aspects of being unable to easily access AAC in bed was the risks that the participants took to engage in sexual activity with their partners. One participant was quite explicit in sharing her sexual experiences, emphasizing the risks of not being able to communicate adequately while having sex, particularly with partners that she did not know well. She explained that due to having severe cerebral palsy and dysarthric speech, being sexually aroused could increase her spasticity, causing her body to spasm, and making it extremely difficult to communicate. Her story emphasizes the high degree of trust she needed to exercise with a sexual partner to maintain some level of communication throughout their experiences together. Being unable to communicate can be frightening at times, particularly when in a high state of emotion. How can you say, "I like that"? Keep going. Or stop? There is an opportunity here for creative solutions to be developed which have applications beyond being able to communicate with a partner in bed. Recently, I have been looking for alternative emergency alert systems that I can use to call for help in situations such as ending up stuck on my back on the floor after a fall. Many of the current solutions available are not suitable for people like me and some of the participants in my research. Our poor motor skills make it difficult to hit a button to activate an emergency alert system, especially when we are stressed, or in pain, or extremely sexually excited. Which leads me back to the fact that current AAC devices are really not suitable for intimate communication. There is an urgent need to expand the focus of these social participation tools and design and manufacture solutions with a greater emphasis on enabling intimate communication. More research is needed into innovative ways of improving the design of the human interfaces of AAC devices to enhance intimate communication. While doing my research, I discovered work by Mulfary and others, 2017, which describes how new wearable technology is being explored in the assistive technology field for people with disabilities. I suggested in my thesis that this could create opportunities for solutions that assist people with complex communication needs to converse with their partners while having sex. While we have seen that the AT market is continuously expanding, the AAC and AT industries would be well advised to realize the importance of the limitations of current solutions and grasp the potential of the market available for innovations that more effectively meet the needs of their customers. Acknowledging that most AT designers, manufacturers, and suppliers are able-bodied, is it possible that devices are unintentionally limited by ableist attitudes? Despite attempts to be inclusive, by involving people with lived experience in providing feedback during development processes, proposed solutions are generally filtered through able-bodied persons who ultimately decide what is produced. Yes, there are complex issues surrounding device accessibility, positioning, and the need for flexibility, but these shouldn't be seen as roadblocks. So why don't we have more AT designers with disabilities? Many people with disabilities are excellent problem solvers. We have to be. But this expertise is so often overlooked or undervalued. Yes, you may ask us to sit on consumer panels, or have a representative seat on the board, often voluntary or with some token payment. But we need more people with disabilities to be actively involved in designing and developing solutions to the real-world problems that affect us. Maybe this is the missing link. I am happy to see this is starting to happen. I believe Novita Tech, here in Adelaide, are employing disabled people to investigate new solutions. Studio Ordinary in Scotland, an interdisciplinary research centre at the University of Dundee which was founded by disabled and non-disabled researchers, is doing remarkable provocative work in AT design. Wouldn't it be great if a body like ARATA, through its member organizations, could be at the forefront of fostering pathways for creative people with disabilities to become AT designers and engineers? What possibilities can we activate here this week? It did take me about 40 years to make good on my promise to the 10-year-old autograph collector and get my PhD. And as it turned out, my friend's prediction that my employment opportunities would explode after doing that proved to be correct. However, it didn't happen immediately. After graduating, I needed to figure out what to do with my life. So, I decided to start a coffee business, as you do, called DrDazz Coffee, selling ethically sourced coffee beans. I sell the beans online and my supplier roasts, packages and delivers them. I hope to build up the business to generate an income for myself, as well as enabling me to help other people. You can read more about my ambitions for this business on the DrDazz Coffee website. Over the past 3 years, I have also had many opportunities to develop my skills as a researcher and lecturer. I'm now working a few days a week for Flinders University in 2 part-time positions. As a scholarly fellow advising on the curriculum within the Disability Studies discipline, and as a research associate doing a postdoctoral research project investigating the lived experiences of Australian adults with disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic, with a focus on people who receive support from the NDIS to live in shared or independent accommodation. Just a quick plug. We are currently in the recruitment process phase for our online survey. The details are on the screen now. Please feel free to share through your networks. Let's see. How did I go with the to-do list? Money? Yes. Religion? Yes. Disability? Yes. Sex? Oh my God. Yes. Today, I have pressed many buttons. I haven't been using a keyguard, so it's possible that some were unintentional. But I hope I have activated your creativity, activated your imagination, activated your sense of possibility. Now it's your turn. Go out and explore. Develop creative solutions, and, by doing so, activate the potential in the people around you.
How terrific was that? Let's again thank you, Dr. Darryl Sellwood. Excellent tour. I'm still pondering, are we going to need AT in heaven? You've asked us the big questions this morning, and now let's open the floor to questions from the audience. We've got some roaming mics, so if you have a question for Darryl, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic to your table. During question time, we did hear that Darryl does use AAC for communication, but to just expedite things, make things a bit quicker, we will be getting assistance from Ferg to revoice Darryl's answers, so it's just about speeding things up. So your AT baby gets the morning off, Darryl. Okay, I'm having trouble seeing. Okay, Ian has a question over here. Thank you, from the Tutti group.
Yes, hello, I'm Amy. I just want to thank you for being so open about everything, about your life, about your world. How does it feel to be able to speak out and hear everybody else agree with you?
What a great question. Thanks, Amy.
Awesome. It feels awesome.
Excellent. So I can't see very well. So any other hands? At the front, thanks, Lisa. Run, Ian, run. Maybe the next person can put their hand up so Ian can look at which direction to go to.
Thanks for your presentation, Darryl. I'm really interested to get your perspective on how you think we can best involve people with disability in the design and development of AT.
I was really hoping you would ask that. What I was thinking about. Was having fellowships. Identify people that are about to go to uni or in uni. Giving them mentors and support and hopefully getting them into this awesome field. That's the basic idea, but there's so many opportunities that you guys could benefit from. And really help you to move this field.
Excellent, thanks, Darryl. And I think you illustrated the importance of having a mentor, having the, that concept of you can't be what you can't see. And so meeting the mathematician who lives with cerebral palsy as well as a young person, then showed you that it was possible to get a PhD. And I'm so glad that you didn't listen to the person who said you couldn't do it. Okay, we've got another question. Thank you.
Oh, hi, Darryl. Alistair McEwen. Really fantastic to hear your talk. And I'm really inspired. I'm an engineer, and to hear about how you started programming, and I'm really wondering, do you still computer program? Why did you change direction? As I'm a academic and talking later today about teaching engineers, and what I'd love to do is have many more people like you in our courses and creating teams together. How can we best do that?
There's a bit in that. I really love programming. I really wish that lecturer had realised what the potential was. I would have been programming AAC. For my honours, I had to go into the School of Communication. I had this in my mind. I'm sorry, this is a bit geeky. But rather than having the alphabet on the screen, I wanted to use the joystick on the wheelchair to navigate through a word landscape. So the words would move out of the way, but if you really wanted that word, you'd have to go right into it. Unfortunately, that didn't really fit into a humanities honours project. I think that's where I went off into the lived experience for people with disabilities. I do love the late night programming, getting off on programming. Maybe we need to talk afterwards. About how to involve people. It would be setting up pathways. We need to make it easier for people to fall into this field.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think you also talked about challenging ableist attitudes. And, you know, I think from a higher education perspective, it's really important to have that why not attitude as opposed to a can't attitude. So, yeah, definitely pathways and opportunities to enable inclusion for everyone to participate. And you've certainly thrown down the gauntlet in terms of being able to create something that will support communication in intimate relationships. And I just want to remind you, this is a geek safe zone. Geeks are welcome. Okay, I think we might have time for one more quick question, and then we'll hear from one of our principal sponsors. Thank you.
Hi, DrDazz. Thanks for your presentation. My name's Michaela. I'm an OT from WA. I work with people who have acquired neurological conditions, so maybe have some ableist ideas about what's possible with AT themselves when they've previously been able-bodied and now are disabled. What sort of questions would you ask to get someone thinking about what's possible rather than what they already think is possible?
What questions would you ask them to imagine the possibilities? That's heavy for a Thursday morning. So it's a big question. I'm not quite sure where to go, but I would think I would be asking them to recognise what they can do. What do they like to do? What did they used to enjoy?
And how can we do it again? Imagine new.
How can we do that again, or adapt it, or imagine new ways?
Excellent, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we do need to finish it up there, but Darryl, you will be joining us for the rest of the conference, and I'm sure that he's more than happy for people to come up and ask lots of questions and engage as we go through and keep the discussion going. So please join me again in thanking Darryl, and thank you, Ferg, as well.